Hey everyone, Nick Engvall here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about some of the people that make the sneaker history community and this podcast possible. It's more important than ever to think about who you give your money to when you're buying clothing to go with your kicks. Our friends at Guilty Goods started their brand with a goal of giving back, especially to the communities that make sneaker culture possible. With every purchase from Guilty Goods, at least 10% of the proceeds are donated to organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, the Susan G. Komen Foundation, the Movement for Black Lives, and many more. You can save 30% on your order by using the code HISTORY at guiltygoods.us. Again, that's history at guiltygoods.us for 30% off, and you can feel good about your purchase knowing you're supporting a meaningful cause. Sneakers are all about presentation, and if you're like me, displaying your kicks at home or in the office is just as important as when they're on your feet. Sneaker Throne makes sneaker display cases featuring customizable LED lights, drop-side cases to showcase the entire side of the shoe, not just the heel or the toe, the whole shoe. They've also got display cases for trading card collectors and hat collectors. To me, it's the perfect way to display your collection. You can save at least 10% on your Sneaker Throne order by using the code HISTORY at sneakerthrone.com. That's history at sneakerthrone.com. If you're a Patreon supporter or a member of our Discord community, you already know about Kicks with V hot sauce and his small batch, locally sourced hot sauce. V has been one of the biggest supporters of sneaker history and the podcast since the early days. He's currently the defending champion in our community trivia nights competition. Kicks with V hot sauce has been a huge hit with the community. You can save 10% on your order by using the code SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. That's SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. Now, you're probably here because you like sneakers, and if you join the Discord, you know our community is about so much more than that. Whether it's the marathon-like community calls, trivia night debates, the in-person meetups, or just sharing our favorite experiences, we found that although we have such different backgrounds, we all have some unexpected shared passions. Not only does the entire community look out for each other when it comes to releases, we're like a support group for life in general. You can join the Discord community for free by heading to the show notes of this episode. After you're done listening to this episode, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Now let's get into today's episode.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move!
LeBron James with no regard for human life. 12 seconds. Bryant for the win. Iverson against Gill. The crowd on its feet. Allen for the win.
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
What up, what up? Welcome back to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name's Nick Engvall. I got a special guest with me today. You'll know him as TD from the Politics of Life, but he's been a friend of mine since I could call him Thad. That's how long I've known him.
Exactly.
So.
You can call me Thaddeus, as long as 06, 07, as long as we've known each other. You can call me whatever. Most people call me asshole or dickhead or whatever else you want to call me, but you've known me long enough to warrant calling me whatever you want to. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you, man. Obviously, if you can't tell already, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Thad has some crazy stories, which, just to shout out Politics of Life podcast. Make sure you subscribe to them. You get to hear plenty of these stories firsthand. But I figure have him on the Sneaker History podcast and pull some good stories out of him and let you guys get a little glimpse of his sneaker journey, I guess. So
yeah, I mean it's been a long one. It's good to be out here. I mean, I'm out here obviously for the Grammys, Grammy weekend, but I wanted to connect with you. Big fan of the Sneaker History Podcast. Big fan of Nick Engvall and everything he's done. So I'm happy we could connect and do this. I'm excited about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Yeah, me too, man. So why don't you, I guess, do a little intro on yourself and like how you got into sneakers?
I got into sneakers, and I didn't even get into sneakers. I don't even know how to say this properly, but I got Michael Jordan. That it wasn't sneakers. It was Michael Jordan. I was, 6 years old, I don't know, 7 years old, whatever. And it was Michael Jordan. And whatever Michael Jordan, the ones, when he came out, it was like, that's God. And that's, it wasn't sneakers. It was, the thing about it is that I had to have everything. I mean, even from the Air Jordan 1, I bought my first pair. I can tell you where I purchased every single pair of Jordans in my life. Every single pair. All the way from the Air Jordan 1s at the Fayette Mall in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Go Cards, by the way. But I purchased my first pair with my dad and mom at All Sports in the Fayette Mall in Lexington, Kentucky. Air Jordan 2s at Philip Gall's in Lexington, Kentucky. I can go, 3s. I can go on and on and on. I purchased my Olympic 7s. My first one's at Champ Sports in Tyson's Corner, Tyson's 2 Galleria. I can tell you all the way to 23. And I kind of, after 23, it dropped off a little for me. I thought, I don't know, but it wasn't a sneaker thing as it was a Michael Jordan, because like when he walked out wearing the gold chains and the dunk contest, like that motherfucker is God.
Yeah.
And I'm like a 7-8-year-old white kid in Louisville, Kentucky. Like that guy is God.
What's crazy is my stepdad would have never let this happen, but to reiterate for anybody that's too young to remember Michael Jordan coming out, my mom actually suggested getting my ear pierced because Michael Jordan had his ear pierced and she thought it looked handsome.
That's incredible.
That's Michael Jordan.
Now, my mom and dad, listen, when I got my ear pierced, my mom beat my ass, boy. Listen, I think I was like 15 years old in high school. I came home. Man, I remember when I first got my first tattoos, I told my mom they were henna. And like she believed that shit for like 8 months. And she's like, man, that shit stay on there long as a motherfucker. I'm like, yeah, well, mom, kind of got something I got to tell you. And I'm like, they're not exactly henna. And she goes, no shit, I really thought they were henna. But yeah, fucking the threes when he came out, the All-Star game, and just everything about him, the way he just everything about him, the Ferrari. Like two things why my love affair with Ferrari, Michael Jordan and Miami Vice. And even more so Michael Jordan, because you saw it's like the license plates. M Air J, Rare Air, all the shit on the Ferraris, like that's the closest thing to Jesus Christ walking.
It is crazy because you don't really think about that to the same extent now because everybody's trying to do it.
Yeah.
But MJ was like
natural
the guy, right? It was like everything he did was like, wow, I had never thought of that or never seen it done before that way. And it just changed everything.
If you could build an individual that's the perfect height, that's the perfect physique, that's the perfect personality, that's the perfect of coming into an era after Magic and Larry and Isaiah, and put someone there, it's Michael Jordan.
Yeah, definitely.
He hemmed his trunks 2 inches longer than everybody else in the league. Like, he was that guy. And it was how my even went past me having to have everything in the Jordans and not just the Jordans but everything, jerseys and just everything, Michael Jordan cologne, Michael Jordan fucking watches, Michael Jordan Wheaties, whatever it was, Michael Jordan, I had to have it.
Yep.
And it was MJ's second year in the league, and they were playing the Indiana Pacers in Indiana. And so my mom and I and dad went up to Indianapolis to go to the game. And we were sitting next to Jerry Krause. And, I'm like, it's Michael Jordan. I don't know how old I am at the time, 8 or 9 years old, whatever I was. And Michael Jordan was, it was just, I was there, and I remember everything about it because, Jerry Krause was asking me, who's your favorite player and this, that, and whatever. And I said, no, it's Michael Jordan. And, I just afterwards, my dad was in the racehorse business, and he had his racehorse farm hat that the farm he owned. And Jerry Krause asked me, goes, do you want Charles Oakley was the player of the game. And he goes, do you want Oakley's autograph? And I was like, yeah. And so anyway, I had the hat, and, Charles Oakley, signed the autograph. And I said, will you give this hat to Michael Jordan? And he said, give it to him yourself. And so I went back. He took me back in the locker room, and I gave the hat to Michael Jordan. And he said, I'll wear it all the way back to Chicago. And I got everything. And that I still have. It's behind glass, game-worn jerseys, game-worn shorts, game-worn sneakers. All of it is behind glass in my house, in my office. Everything is signed, game-worn wristbands. And I got everything. I got a garbage bag of shit from every player. Charles Oakley, I got jerseys, everything. And all of it is, behind glass, and the shoes and wristbands and towels and all types of shit. But as I left, and Michael Jordan, when he said, wear it all the way back to Chicago. So I left, and I walked out the locker room with my mother. And I said, Michael Jordan said he's going to wear my hat all the way back to Chicago. And my mom said, just be thankful for what you got. Look at everything you got. Just be gracious and thankful for what you got. I said, no, Michael Jordan says he's going to wear my hat all the way back to Chicago. Right? And I was like, my mom was just like, listen, just be grateful for what you got. Michael Jordan says he's going to wear my hat all the way back to Chicago. So anyway, that night after the game, we get back to the hotel, and we put on the local news on the TV. And sure enough, he's wearing the hat. And my dad called the TV station, the local news in Indianapolis, and I still have it. And I had it converted to DVD. It still plays in my office. And, yeah. And after that moment of him saying something to someone that I was going to do, and he just didn't throw it in the trash. And still to this day, people are like with my father going, how the fuck did you get Michael Jordan to wear your fucking, racehorse farm hat that you had? And that forever changed everything with Michael Jordan. I was, everything. I went to his basketball camp. I played one-on-one with him. Everything when the, back then, Nike Town in Chicago, we go to Michael Jordan Steakhouse, everything and anything that was Michael Jordan, I had to have it. It wasn't just the sneakers. And yes, I did. I mean, I still to this day have every pair of Jordans ever made in every color from 1 to 23. Every pair ever made from 1 to 23. And like I said, after that, the 2009 and all that other shit, I mean, it kind of went left. But, it's like my dad went, because there was no internet back then, and, they didn't, Nike Town didn't ship. And my dad flew to Chicago to pick up the City Series pack. When MJ came back, the manager at Nike Town Chicago called my dad and said, we've got some sneakers in today that, your son will want. And, my dad flew to Chicago to go pick up the City Series pack.
That's so crazy.
Still have them. I think they're like a size 6 or 7 or something, but yeah. Yeah.
That's so crazy, man. I mean, it is just wild too, because nowadays people don't even understand. On one level, I don't think people even understand like how important Michael Jordan was, not even to like you being close to it and having that experience, but like for me, I think at that time, like I'm either still in Sacramento or my mom and stepdad moved to Oregon, and we lived in a little town called Roseburg, Oregon for a while. And, you just don't even realize how I stopped everything to go find, WGN at friends' houses so I could watch it. And now everything
WGN.
yeah, like
There's a fuck. Woo. Man,
but,
mind blown.
People
Yeah.
don't even know that, right? Like that was like the local Chicago station.
Yeah.
Became like a cable station.
Yeah. Because of Michael Jordan.
Because of the Bulls
And Michael Jordan.
And Michael Jordan being such a big deal.
Yeah.
That'd be like me getting to watch like New York One. I mean, that's not even a good example, right?
Yeah.
Because it's New York, right? Like
Right.
it's New York or LA, you might get that. But it's like Chicago was not on that level back then.
Yeah.
You know, like they were, it's still an amazing city. And
Yeah.
I would put it up there in the top 5
Yeah.
in the US.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like in terms of like that kind of like power or like influence across culture, it just wasn't there in Chicago
Right.
at that time. I think throughout the years, like because of what Jordan meant to Chicago, even like the design and like the architecture of Chicago in the past 40 years, 50 years since MJ, or what has it been? 40 years, right? Like the city's like transformed completely
Yeah.
in so many ways that like it's so hard to even explain that to people, right?
Right.
It's like so like what? Like how, you know,
Right.
we're in like this weird time where like, you know, sneakers, fashion, just anything creative is such a like condensed one and done type thing, right?
Right.
Like, if somebody lasts a couple of years, you want to be like, you know, like congratulating them on like, you know, surviving life because they made it a couple of years, where this was like 2 decades solid of just like everything was influenced by this one person everywhere, not just in like, you know, obviously if you play basketball, small town, anywhere, you knew.
I mean, listen, I wore the grid knee brace, the grid neoprene. Remember that? Like the grid neoprene knee brace, you know, when I'm like 7 years old, the grid, it was black and red. You folded down the top. It was the name of the company was Grid. Like I had that, the wristband. Like you thought I thought, like I said, everything Michael Jordan did.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to have it. Like, I mean, you know, and I just, he was everything. And he was, and also I want to say this, and that our era that we grew up in, that I'm thankful. I'm thankful because you and I got to walk in and see the threes for the first time. The air raids, air tech challenges. You know, we got to see Agassi come out wearing denim at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And people going, well, he's going to get kicked the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know, this is in the 90s. You know, Wimbledon was probably all white back then. You know, they didn't even allow minorities. Yep. You know, and this guy comes out wearing all denim and his hair all flared up and shit. And, you know, like I said, I mean, I'm blessed and grateful. I'm grateful that, you know, I heard NWA and like, you know, my first tour, my first concert I went to was the fucking Chronic. Yeah. That was my first concert was the fucking Chronic. I was high as a motherfucker. I was like 11, getting high as a motherfucker with my, I'm not even gonna say who, cause I'll probably get in trouble. But anyway, and you know, that was my first concert was the Chronic. And I'm not talking about the Chronic 2. I'm talking about Dre and Snoop and Death Row.
Yeah.
You know,
it's crazy too, because it's almost like when you say that, I think about like the real part of what it was to like be a part of things and grow up in that era. Yeah. Is that people really broke the rules. Yeah. Right. Like, yes. Now people don't break the rules, right? No. Like people don't speak up. Like, I mean, this is
couldn't agree more.
If you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you know, like I'm always bitching about this, but like, where's the Public Enemy? Where's the NWA for this generation?
Exactly.
Right? Like, if you're,
it's like you when you were the one who said Rage Against the Machine, right, is coming to Coachella. Yeah. Right. And I was like, thank God Rage Against the Machine's back. Yeah, it's like, you know, we need something. We need right Chuck D and Public Enemy, and we need Ice Cube and America's Most Wanted and Kill at Will and, you know, Lethal Injection, and we need Chuck D and we need Flavor Flav and we need NWA and, you know, we need Rage Against the Machine. I was like, when I saw Nick's tweet, like Rage Against the Machine, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to that shit. And it was like, it was funny because Peckus, you know, at now CAA, you know, he called him, he goes, God damn it, what do you want? And I was like, man, I want to go see Rage Against the Machine. He's like, you are not the type of person. There's no Four Seasons there. There's no Ritz-Carlton. He's like, what the fuck do you want to go out in the middle of the desert for? I'm like, no, I just want to see Rage Against the Machine. That's it. Just give me a ticket for Rage Against the Machine, and I'm straight. Like, I'm going to get up there, bullet, bulls on parade, like all that shit. I'm like, I'm tuned up and ready to go. I'm ready to fight someone,
Well, and it's funny too, because I always had that in me. Like, I've always been a little hot-headed, I guess, in that sense. And that's always been my drive professionally to like not put up with the bullshit in the job. Right.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, as I got older, there's value in that for the companies that I work for.
Yeah.
And with some people I work with, I rub them the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I only last a year or two doing that.
Yeah.
Other people, we see the benefit of that and the benefit of me challenging that status quo. And it turns into a long-term thing, and I can work with them, off and on for the last 15 years or whatever it's been. And I look at hip hop music as the like driving force of that.
Yes.
And it just doesn't, like, I think, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of like picking on like a younger generation. I just look at the stuff that comes out now, and I think, like,
I don't care about your gold teeth.
Like,
I don't care about your
tattoos on your
Ferrari.
face and I
don't. I got a Porsche and Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about what NWA, because police are still killing minorities.
Yeah.
And it's still racism, and the Trump administration at an all-time high.
Yep.
Maybe not an all-time high, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's like addressing this?
Yeah. And usually it's through art, right? It's usually through music. It's through even fashion, right?
Yeah.
Like, fashion isn't even
right.
It's all this fast fashion shit that doesn't actually some people have some
nobody,
stuff but it's like it's not done to inspire the people to rage against the machine.
Nobody is willing to upset their check.
Yeah.
Listen,
exactly.
And the perfect thing is, and I, as you know, I was in a horrific car crash last August, and everybody, it's our thoughts and prayers are with you, right? Not going to be gun control until a important enough white Republican kids dies.
Yeah.
Right? I was in a car crash in August 17th. I spent 3 days in the hospital. It was a horrific car crash. My medical bills that I'm responsible for, $80,000. That's my responsibility. And I get it now. I get it. There's no more my thoughts and prayers are with you. Some couple million people go bankrupt in America every year. And I get it. And nobody wants to upset their check. Meaning Massacre Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. You have bills on your desk, and I'm not anti-gun. But something has to be done.
Yeah.
And you are willing to go down in history as being called Massacre Mitch instead of doing something, universal background checks, mental health checks, something. I'm not anti-gun. I'm all fine with it. And some of these dumbasses on social media and Instagram, not to digress for a minute. Personally, if we ever have to go to war, I think what the U.S. government should do is peruse social media and say, well, this stupid fucker's out running around in the woods shooting at stuff. We're going to send his ass to fucking Baghdad. Let him get some live action, have a fucking rifle aimed at his fucking cabeza. You know what I'm saying? So this guy right here is running around the woods thinking he's fucking G.I. Joe. Let's send his ass to Fallujah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for my hunters out there, I'm trying to raise money, and I'm going to figure out a way to strap an AR-15 to a deer and let him shoot back. I personally think don't get an innocent animal that you just want to fucking mount the fucking head on your wall. Give that animal a chance to fire back. Strap an AR-15 to that bitch. You know what I'm saying? Give that poor animal a chance to fight back. The fucking lion, the elephant, whatever you do, strap some fucking machine guns on that bitch and let him fight back. And it's like all these dumbasses running around on social media and Instagram and shit, fucking running around the woods. The government, U.S. government should say, well, we're going to send his ass to Baghdad. Get him some live action. I don't mean to digress there, but my point is, as you were saying, nobody wants to upset their check.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to upset. Well, I've got a good thing going right now, and I really, if I'm Rage Against the Machine or NWA or Public Enemy or
Tupac,
Biggie, like I might not get another record deal.
Yeah.
And I'll speak out against Trump, but it's just going to be, oh, he's a bad person.
Yeah.
you know, and that's where I agree with you. And it's like I said, when I saw your tweet about Rage Against the Machine coming, I was like, yes. It was like, you know, because that's what I want. I mean, I want, you know, what the state of the world and everything now is. It upsets me. It does.
Yeah.
And going in, and I think to a certain extent, creativity has really suffered.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, you and I were just talking about going to Chicago for All-Star and things releasing. And there's just nothing that I'm like.
Yeah, like you don't ever feel that, you know, I think like the 23 is a good cutoff point too, right? There's a few that I've liked since then, but the 23, Air Jordan 23 was the last where I was like, holy shit, like I gotta do something to get my hands on this.
Yeah, I told you, I rigged the auction at Nike Town in Beverly Hills. I rigged the auction at Nike Town in Beverly Hills for the titanium 23s. I rigged that auction, said, how much do you want to call my fucking number? And then I did end up winning the raffle, wink, wink, from Shoe Gallery in Miami for the finales. And then I did rig the auction at the Nike Vault for the Kobe Aston Martin pack. I rigged that auction too. I just said, you know, I said, how much is it going to cost? And, you know, they pulled my number out first for the Kobe Aston Martin pack at the Vault. And I did get the undefeated fours. I did, you know, that was straight up. I did get the undefeated fours, the t-shirt, and I have the samples and the released, the ones that released, the M&M fours and all that stuff. But, I just, you know, the undefeated fours and that one, like when we were out here in LA back then, like DJ AM and like Entourage. And I remember like I had to have the Day of the Dead dunks and I went down to, there was some guy that I knew in fucking Mexico or somewhere that ended up having them. I had to drive from LA to Tijuana to meet the fucking guy to get him because he got him from somewhere in Costa Mesa or San Diego or whatever, the sneaker shop down there at the time. I forget which one it was, but I had to go down to fucking Tijuana to get him from LA. And he's like, oh yeah, you got to be here in like an hour and a half. I'm like, fuck. So I'm driving like Evel Knievel from LA to down there. But you know, I just, that even going into that, it was right before like things went crazy.
Yeah.
The snake pools. I rigged the snake pool option at the House of Hoops when it opened. Oh, two other stories. I rigged the for the snake pools when Kobe jumped over the car at the fucking, you know, the Beverly Center, the House of Hoops. I rigged that one for the snake pools. And then when the House of Hoops in Harlem opened for the Ray Allen 3s and the no, not the Ray Allen 3s, the Ray Allen 13s and the Q Rich 13s. Oh, yeah. I rigged that shit too.
So if you missed out on those, you know, you can.
If you missed out on them and you were a size 9, you can fucking blame me because I'm the one who got them.
It is kind of crazy though, like the even just, you know, LA sneakers over. I think so. I mentioned before we started recording, but I just saw that the Entourage house sold for like $5 million, which it's not in like Beverly Hills the way they portray it or Hollywood the way they portray it on the show, but it's kind of crazy to think that like that show, I mean, I didn't realize it was that long ago that show was on.
I know.
I mean, it's like 10 plus, you know, years since
I know
that was on. And it, even though it wasn't sneaker specific, there was just so much integrated sneaker talk in it.
Yeah.
That, you know, yeah, they had episodes where they were prominent in them. Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about how much just sneakers in LA has changed where, you know, like Fairfax was never a big deal 10, 15 years ago, right? It's grown over the last 10 years.
What was it? What was it like? Sporty LA?
Yeah,
like
Sporty LA, yeah.
Sporty LA, undefeated Union.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so Sporty LA is a great example. Like I actually, when I first, so I've been like kind of working independently as a consultant in the sneaker business for, you know, the last 4 years, 3-4 years, but off and on for the last 12.
Yeah.
They were one of the first companies that I actually like tried to work with and it didn't work out, but like I just went to them because they were the old school spot here. Right. Yeah. Like, and back then they had a place on South Fairfax called Sneaker Joe's.
Oh yeah.
Which was like all of their like old stuff that they just threw into another retail spot. And we used to go dig through and find all sorts of stuff in there. And, you know, at first it was like they wanted way too much money for it. And we would come back and come back and come back. And eventually we got to know the guy, you know, it was like the uncle that ran that store.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you're getting, you know, all the stuff that people think don't exist now because they only look on Instagram and Twitter and, you know, the resale sites.
Right.
There was so much of that here. There was so much of like hunting that I don't think people, you know, New York gets a lot of credit for having this like crazy world of sneakers and being like one of the pinnacle places. But LA has always kind of had that. It's just always been really low key and you had to look for it.
Right. Exactly.
And if you looked hard enough and you talked to enough people,
you'd find it.
You'll find all sorts of crazy shit here. And I think like Entourage almost like helped that in a sense to show that it existed, but like keep that like subtle, low key.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you got to be in the know,
right? I mean, I used to fuck with Sporty LA, and all there really was Sporty LA, undefeated Union, and I remember, you know, back when I walked into Union and what the Dunks were just sitting there. Nobody knew. Like they came in, they put them on the shelves, and you know, I was like, these are kind of dope, and I walked out with them.
That's so crazy,
you know, and
that's got to be like. I don't think anybody listening has heard something like that because it's just such a. I mean, I remember. Well, you know, Aaron.
Yeah.
I forget the Dunks, but being from Sacramento, a lot of the guys that skate right in like right around the time that we probably met, like that, like mid to late 2000s. We went into this little tiny skate shop that went out of business like a year or two later. But they had, what was that Dunk? I forget what it was, but it was kind of like brown and it had the Jesus on it. And it was a collab from like over in Europe.
Yeah.
But you like, it was one of the first that you brush away the brown and it turned to like this.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm totally drawing a blank on the name of it. But we walked in there and then there's a pair sitting on the shelf. The guy doesn't even carry SBs.
Right.
He has no other SBs on the wall.
Right.
It's all, you know, Lakai and all this older, you know, like the S stuff. And it was because all those skaters, I mean, San Francisco, Sacramento, like huge skate scene. So all the guys skate, you know, so that, I think that pair was like a personal pair from like Chico Brenes, who had his own signature shoe with Nike SB for a while. And Aaron picked him up. Probably still has them. I'm sure. I haven't talked to him about it.
I remember when I was up in San Francisco with Aaron and I got the Huffquakes. The Air Force Ones. Yeah. I like whatever happened to Huff.
They're still around. They just aren't doing, they do all their own stuff, right? Like they're like the old, like more traditional like skate brand now. So make their own shoes, make their own, you know, clothing and stuff, but they don't really do collabs the way they used to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I loved LA. I mean, I loved LA and Sporty LA and Undefeated and Union and like I said, but that was really it. And you know, I used to love, like I said, you know, the shit you would find at Sporty LA or other, you know, couple spots here and there. But I loved what I hate now. I hate that everything leaks.
Yeah.
Like that excitement of when Mike came out and you got to see the Air Jordan for the first time.
Yep.
Right? Or Agassi or Bo Jackson or whoever.
Yep.
Right? Whatever icon of that time, whether it be Charles Barkley or whoever your icon was at that time, you know, Agassi, Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, you know, Dominique Wilkins. I'm surprised nobody's brought back Dominique Wilkins Brooks. Like everybody's brought back everything. So why haven't somebody brought back Dominique Wilkins Brooks?
I think they tried at some point within the last decade or so,
really?
but like a lot of those brands, you know,
yeah,
I'm not like a huge Gary Vee fan.
Yeah,
but he understands how these brands have life still left in them.
Yeah,
and I think up until the last 3-4 years, when old brands were brought back, like you could, and one is a great example, right? Like they tried to bring that brand back multiple times.
Yeah,
and it's never fully went under.
No,
but they were never fully successful. And this time around,
it's like you see it at Jimmy Jazz in New York.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's, you know, and Dr. J's.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you know, the challenge for a brand like Brooks is that a majority of the people, like, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only basketball shoe they really have to like hang on to.
Right.
So unless they do it in a really cool way, you know,
I agree.
and the people that are trying to do it, no offense
Yeah.
to anybody if they're listening from Brooks, but like, I'd love to help you out doing that.
Yeah.
But like, most of the people that are at Brooks now work on running shoes.
Right.
They don't care about this one-off basketball shoe,
Yeah.
or, you know, there was a handful of them back then, but like, I always wonder about like the, you know, like on the other side of that, like the Avia stuff with Drexler, you know, like,
Well,
around that
Avia's
same
back.
era, right?
Avia's back. They just don't know it.
Yeah.
Now, you can walk into your local Louis Vuitton
Yeah,
and
yeah.
buy as much fucking Avia shit as you'd like.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's one thing that I'm not mad at anyone who's successful and getting money, especially minorities who have struggled and are coming up and into their own. And I'm not mad at anybody or anything, but I think Virgil is probably one of the greatest plagiarizers the world has ever seen. I do. I think Virgil is probably one of the greatest plagiarizers of our, definitely of our time. That the man can knock off the Air Jordan 3 and the recent Louis Vuitton shit, and it's like, it's okay. And everybody says, I'm going to segue to something that everybody says, well, there's nothing new. There's nothing new. Yeah, there is. And I'm not a big Jerry Lorenzo fan of like Fear of God or whatever, but I fuck with Jerry because that was some original idea. The Fear of God one was an original, and I don't care if he worked with his designers at Nike, he worked with his designers in Italy. It is an original silhouette.
I agree.
And that's why I fuck with him. You can hate it or love it, but it's an original that I came up with the design team in Italy, with the design team at Nike, whoever it was. And that's why I fuck with him. It wasn't just, well, I'm going to knock off a Via, right? And I'm going to change some shit on a Via. And then I'm going to knock off the Air Jordan 3. And like the college, you remember the game hats that said like, you know, UNLV, and then underneath it said Running Rebels, like Louis Vuitton. You know, you go in, get yourself a game hat that's Louis Vuitton. You know, everybody says, well, there's nothing new, and that's not true. It's that everybody's lazy, except, like I said, that's why I fuck with Jerry. I'm not a big Fear of God guy, any of that, but you have to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, I don't want to. So, do you think that that's the case with Virgil? Because, so would you say that that's the same like for Kanye, Nike era Kanye? Because I think I'm you know, kind of loosely trying to tie together.
I agree with you because let's be honest. Two things. Like I was in a shop one time. I don't mean to digress. And it was like there was the Atlantic Blue Air Max 97s, and the kid working at the shop tried to tell me, "Oh yeah, they're based off the Sprite LeBrons." I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't take it. And then why I tied that in with the Yeezys is because somebody was trying to tell me that, oh yeah, the Air Tech Challenge, they knocked off the Yeezys. And I'm like, I can't take it. I just can't take it. It's too early for stupid. And I just, you know,
too early for stupid.
And but I agree with you because he did take the Air Tech Challenge soul.
It's funny too, because I wonder if I think it was done in a really cool way. Like I wouldn't wear any of the Yeezy Nike stuff probably.
Yeah.
But there was a wow factor to it of like, oh shit, there's enough of this that's familiar.
Yeah.
There's enough of it that's new.
Yeah.
For me to be like, okay, like I'm interested.
Right.
You know? But I think like that formula is why, you know, like I just mentioned it not long ago on Twitter. Like I'm just kind of like wondering if like the formula for Virgil is over, right? Like at first it was interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't unique to me.
No.
You know, like especially like you being overseas, right? In Europe, right? Like Garb Store did that with the Reebok stuff 3-4 years before
absolutely.
Virgil did the
And did you
stuff.
Did you see, and we're both wearing our corporate got him. Shout out to our guy MT in Cincinnati. But the thing is, did you see when Virgil put up the picture of Mike wearing the black 5s with the white laces?
I don't think I saw it.
Well, Virgil put it up, right? And I sat there and go, so that's what this shoe is based on, is the black 5s with the white laces. Well, my guy, Meach, who's not really my guy, but he's Matt's guy at corporate, did that with the Ben 5s.
Yeah.
Remember the Ben 5s that were black with the white laces?
Yeah.
Meacham, the guy in Cincinnati who Matt's real close with, worked on that shoe and the black laces. And he's the one who gave Jordan Brand the idea to do the white laces and the Ben 5s, the black ones. So I'm like,
yeah, and I think too, like if you were paying attention to Jordan back in the day, and I don't know how old Virgil is, so I don't know if he falls into the category of even being able to see, like he might be younger. And
no, I think he's 40.
Oh, really? So,
yeah.
Because I remember having the conversation
39, 38, 30, 40.
He should know.
Yeah,
that.
he and Kanye. Yeah. I mean, they're all in that same, age bracket, and our same, age bracket.
Yeah, because I remember like Russ Bankston and I, when I was in the complex, when I was living in New York, we talked about the white laces and the Jordans, because it was just a thing. Like you said, like if you grew up watching Michael, you noticed those things, right?
Exactly.
Like it was like what like as a kid, you're not thinking about swapping laces, which seems bananas now because every shoe comes with 6 pairs of laces.
Yeah,
but back then, like you literally had to pull those out of another shoe in order to do it, or go find them at the
absolutely.
Kmart or Thrifty or whatever it was that was around you. So
exactly. It just, Sports Authority.
Yeah. Sports Authority. Yeah. I forget, what was the sports store you mentioned in Kentucky? The first one?
All Sports.
So we had Jumbo Sports, I think was like the chain that was when I was
I copped my first pair of Jordan 11s at Sports Authority in Maryland.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, Baltimore, Maryland. I was at Sports Authority, and that's where I caught my first pair of Concord 11s. And the Concord 11 is that's my shoe. I mean that's my shoe. It's my shoe. It has a lot of meaning to me personally, and and that's my shoe. But I just hate that there's this lack of originality, and I, like I said, I mean I don't discredit anything with Virgil. I think he has been able to spin that he's creative.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, I'm glad you're getting money. I'm glad, and everything. And I'm not going to, but let's be honest. I mean, there's no originality there.
Yeah,
there's none.
I was thinking that potentially he was younger. That's why I was like, maybe it's just a product
Virgil,
of the environment.
Kanye,
right?
Ivan, all those guys are relatively the same age.
It's funny too, because so we just did an episode talking about Don C.
Yeah,
and Don C has done a lot of that same early Kanye approach, where the nostalgia is really present. In stuff that he does, and I think the one thing that he does really well that I don't think people, because the sneaker world, everybody's looking at like the Virgils and like the resale stuff. But like, my experience working at like a Finish Line, it's like, you and I spending money on shoes doesn't matter compared to selling 6 million Air Monarchs. So Don C's designs always translate to that middle consumer where it's like, oh shit, that's familiar. Looks like a Jordan, looks something. I like the colors.
Yeah.
And like, I don't see that with other, like guys like Virgil, right?
Yeah.
Like it's trying to be over the top, but it's not really over the top. It's not really that different. But then I look at Don C and I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting because I got to meet him once. I've met him twice, but like really got to talk to him a little bit at StockX when I was working there. And he was just so nice, man. He's just like, reminds me,
I mean, listen, I've been around Virgil loads of times. Yeah. Nicest people you'll ever meet. That's beside the point. Don's nice, and Virgil, and Kanye is an interesting character. He's very intense. But I think nice isn't the word I would use, but he's okay. He's cool.
Yeah.
But out of all of them, I think that Virgil has dumbfucked his way into being the creative director of Louis Vuitton by convincing people he is creative.
Yeah.
When it's, let's take the Air Jordan 3, tweak this, tweak that, put a logo on there. Yep. Oh, here we go. You know, and it's like the Ben 5s, the Air Jordan 5 off-whites that are coming out. Like,
yeah. Yep.
You know, the shit that he does that irritates the dog shit out of me. I mean, it just does.
It is. So it is funny because this sounds really probably arrogant, but I don't mean it in the way that it sounds. But I actually forgot that I got to meet Kanye like in 2012 when he first signed with Adidas.
Yeah.
Like we just happened to be working in New York at the time, and you know, Wex, who's like, you know, kind of the brains behind Adidas on that side of things.
Yeah.
Like texted us and was like, "Hey, come by, you know, the office." We were actually shooting some video in like one of the floors of their office there, right on Houston. And Wex is like, "Hey, come upstairs real quick." And so like my buddy Brandon and I got to go upstairs and actually meet Kanye. And he was like super supportive. He was super humble. He was like thankful that we were supporting, because, you know, we were big fans of what he was doing. It was like, wow, he's bringing Adidas back. And, you know, I think we've talked about this. Like, I want the competition to be there.
Absolutely.
I want every brand to be at the top of their game at all times. I know that doesn't really exist, but the more brands that are at the top and pushing the other brands, the better it is for us as consumers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when Kanye, although like at the time, like the 750 was like kind of wild and it wasn't something, it's not a style that most of the Yeezy stuff is not styles that I would wear.
Yeah.
It was just like, shit, like this is going to make people rethink what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And when we got to meet him, it was just so cool that he was so down to earth and just like, hey, you know, you guys are supporting me, you know, through the content that you're creating, through the brands. And I was really floored that he was that humble. And obviously, like, you know, I think it depends on when and where you meet everybody, right? But one thing that I was thinking about too with like this whole group is collectively they cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
You know, across all the different platforms.
Absolutely.
And I don't know that we'll ever see it in this way again. But I was thinking about, as you were talking about the nostalgia thing with Mike, the Bulls were that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you looked at Pippen, you looked at Rodman, you looked at, I mean, fucking B.J. Armstrong was an all-star, man.
Yeah.
Like Luke Longley. Like, all these guys were like...
Bill Cartwright. And,
Bill
you know,
Wennington,
Stacey
like,
King. And, I mean...
all these guys had...
Steve Kerr.
Like, yes. All of them were, like, on a different level of swag because of Michael, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like the same thing on the fashion side now, where it's like Kanye and all this group, and I never really like kind of connected those dots until we were talking. But
MJ still, and I've had the privilege of meeting just about everybody, from the Rolling Stones to De Niro to whoever. Michael is still the person that I have to sit there and be not lose my shit.
Yeah.
And just be like, I love you.
Yep.
Like, Michael is I'm not, you know, I mean, you know, some of my best friends are athletes, professional athletes, top of their game, top of their sport, some of my best friends. And I just, like I said, there's nobody that when he walks in the room, it's like God walking in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, man. I mean,
a couple years ago was smoking cigars with him in New York at Up and Down when they did the Neymar Jordan 5 Low. One of the guys at Jordan Brand called me and said, "Hey, come to dinner. We're going to go to Up and Down, smoke some cigars, whatever." And I said, "Okay." And like, I mean, I'm doing the whole fucking thing in the mirror, like going, just calm down, calm down, calm down. And like, just, he has this.
Yeah.
When he walks in the room, it's just, you just sit there and you're like, Yeah.
Well, and just to clarify for everybody that's listening, this is presumably you've met and smoked cigars with Mike a number of times before this happened.
Yeah.
So this is just an every time occurrence.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody that I am as floored by every single time. Every single time, I'm just like, and when we're getting ready to leave, he always comes over and he shakes my hand. He goes, thank you so much for bringing the cigars, and I really appreciate it, and thank you. And I'm like, I'm sitting there, and like the guys at Jordan Brand will be like, Dad, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, like I can't even speak. Like my guys over there at Jordan Brand will be like, hit me on the shoulder, hit me on there, and go, Dad, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, like I can't even say it. It's Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
and it's like it has been, numerous times and everything, but it never, like I said, and I've had the privilege of drinking wine or smoking cigars with pretty much everybody, and there's no one that just, and the thing about it is that with me, it's like even my friends and everything else, because Peckus gives me a hard time about Dwayne Wade, right? And he loves busting my balls about Dwayne Wade. And so much of the things in my life that I look back on and why I don't look at certain people that are just my friends, even though they are the biggest athlete in the world and whatever, they're just my friends. But it's like Peckus giving me a hard time about Dwayne Wade, because so many of the things in my life, right? And, it's like Real Madrid. I get to hang out with the Real Madrid team almost every other week, every month.
Yeah.
And that's including Cristiano or whoever, when he was there. But it's Zidane is like, I'm still like Zidane, because I look back at my youth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's who it was. And like Peckus gives me a hard time about Dwayne Wade, because I look at D Wade and I'm like, it's fucking D Wade. Yeah. Because so many of the things that I look back in my life, he was like, I was there.
Yeah.
I was there when Jesus Shuttlesworth hit that fucking shot. The first year the big three came in, I was at 71 regular season games.
Yeah.
I was there in 2006. I was there the season after when we won 15 games. When Dwayne Wade, dropped the triple-double on Kentucky and knocked Kentucky out of the tournament and Marquette. And I still talk to D Wade about that all the time, and there's just certain people that, even though we're like cool and we are, friends and we, whatever, I still have a hard time sitting there, because I'm like, I was there when D Wade did this.
Yep.
Right. I was there when Mike switched hands in Chicago against the Lakers. I was at the game. Yeah. And it's just certain people like Zidane. And there's certain people that, even though you look at them as a peer and we're sitting there smoking cigars, drinking wine and, shooting the shit and everything else, I still have a hard time, because there was such a big part of my life when I look back on the great things that I've gotten to experience and the privileges that I've gotten to experience.
Yeah.
Yep. D Wade and when we beat Dallas and him averaging almost 40 a game, and just, there's just, like I said, there's so many, and I do, even though we're peers and we sit and we go to dinner together and everything's normal, I still sit there and I'm be like, fucking D Wade,
That's awesome.
It's fucking Mike.
Yeah.
Because everybody, with Chicago coming up, they're like, Thad, you're going to be able to control yourself. You're going to be, Mike's going to be there. You're going to be smoking cigars and drinking wine. You're going to be able to control yourself. I'm like, listen, bro, I can't promise you anything. I can't promise you anything. I will do my best. But if I go, again, you'll know it just is what it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so dope too, because that's kind of the I don't know, like that energy and that like wow factor of these guys is what makes, I mean, it's basically what makes my career, my work enjoyable, right? Because you get to experience a piece of what they're doing that they don't even realize that they're, I mean, to a certain extent they do, but like, it's just so much influence, so much like, like, I don't know what the word is, but I guess like influence is the only thing. Cause it's like, it's everywhere. Right. And I'm just grateful because all of, from MJ all the way through, right? Like it just lit something on fire in me to be able to be a part of like, hey, this is like a sneaker thing. I thought, like growing up, everybody was like, what are you doing? Like drawing sneakers all the time. Why do you need those? Like, and then when I got to spend money on them, when I, started working, it was like, why are you spending all your money on sneakers? And like, this is what I want to spend my money on. This is what I like. It brings something to my life. So, it's wild to look back and like, and to hear you kind of reiterate that, just like, even when you're getting to hang with them, and have that dinner with them or cigars or wine or whatever, that it still has that, like that feeling of like when you're a little kid, right?
Oh,
that's the
absolutely.
Same thing. That's the same thing for me with sneakers or back, like any of this stuff. Right. And that's what keeps me going. So,
and I mean, next week I'm going to be going to, up to Jordan Brand to see my friends at Jordan Brand at Nike. And we'll sit around, we'll go to Gaucho and we'll smoke cigars and drink wine and we'll reminisce about, the good old days. And, I appreciate, all of them out there and everything. But like I said, I mean, there's just certain people, and, Peckus loves busting my balls about D Wade. And, and then, like I said, I mean, even I've got a good friend of mine and she gives me grief about Zidane, because it's like, I can have, interact with, Ronaldo or whoever it is, and, drink wine and have normal conversations and whatever. But Zidane walks in the room, I'm like, and it's the same thing. Like I said, it's going to be the same thing in Chicago. It's like, the Jordan party in Chicago and people being like, Dad, you gonna be all right? I'm like, listen, bro, I can't promise you anything. I can't promise you anything. I might just sit there and say, I love you, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. I love you, bro. Like, I mean, and I get, Jordan Brand and the people there do treat me differently because of the story that I have with the hat. And then wearing it, they do treat me differently, and they do bless me with a lot of unbelievable stuff. For a very long time. And also one thing I will say is that, I am hard on Jordan Brand. And
I know.
Yeah. And you do know. And I'm only hard on things that I care about. If I don't care about you, I'm not going to give a shit.
Yep.
Why waste my time? Right.
Yep.
Because, I knew about the Dior thing. I've been sitting on the Dior thing since January of last year. Right. And, I thought it was going to be a women's collab, but ended up being a men's. I think it would have been real dope if it had stayed a women's.
Yeah, I do too.
But, it is what it is. And I'm just, oftentimes when I go, when I'll talk to him like, Thad, you're the only person that can get away with telling us that shit. You're the only person on earth that gets away with talking to us like you fucking do. And sometimes, you get a little, wound up. And I'm like, that's just because I care about it.
Yeah.
Because it had such an impact on my life.
Yep.
On Michael and the shoes and everything, in my life. It's like the Concord 11s, I probably have Concord 11s, more than 500 pair of just Concord 11s.
It's crazy, man.
My mother went through a couple of years, and the people at Jordan Brand, they know it, because the Bread 11s, and, Concord 11s, and they're so funny. The that they're like, you're fanatical. And so one of the Bread 11s that came out for Christmas this past year, right? I called, I was talking to my guy on the phone. He goes, yeah, we sent them, we'll send them to you. They'll go out today. I'm like, I need you to send them to me in Madrid. And they're like, what? They're like, yeah, it's the Classico. Real Madrid is playing Barcelona. I need to wear them to the fucking Classico. Whatever the fuck it costs for you to overnight those fucking shoes to Madrid. Or not Madrid, Barcelona. I'm sorry, Barcelona. To my hotel in Barcelona. Fucking do it. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I'm that fucking fanatical about it. I have to be wearing those Bread 11s to the fucking Classico.
Yeah.
To go to the game. And I'm, the same thing, my mother, everything is good now, but a couple years ago, she went through a tough couple years with health, and I wore a new pair of Jordan 11s every day for 2 years. I wore a new pair, wore a new pair of Concord 11s every day for 2 years. And then I took those off and I went and I donated them to Children's Charity.
That's awesome, man. So,
but it's just a sense of comfort for me.
Yeah.
And I have to have like the fresh ones. And it was like, I just had to have, like I said, the Concord 11 for me. And they'll tell you out of campus, like, how fanatical is that about Concord 11s? Like, and the other thing is the Fire Red 4s. I want my Fire Red 4s with Nike Air on the back.
Yeah.
So I've been told they're in the pipeline, and the original 2s. I want the original 2s. Make them in fucking Italy, charge $1,000 a whack, make 2,300 pairs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say the same thing on Monday in the Michael Jordan building when I'm sitting there with all of them. Say, make 2,300 pairs, charge $1,000 a whack for them, and make them in Italy.
It's so funny, too, because I think we're kind of even like the general consumer, right, is almost at that point where let's just get the good shit. Give us one of the good shit every year, and we're good.
Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting to see how long it's gone. But we should probably wrap up.
I want my Fire Red 4s, and I want my OG 2s. Fire Red 4s, OG 2s, and then I'm good. I want the Nike Air on the back of the Fire Red 4s. And one last thing is that, because the Nike Air on the black cements was crooked.
Yeah.
And boy, I was like, going off on them. And they were like, well, there's Thad calling, click, putting him through the voicemail. Like, how do you fuck that up? How do you fuck up?
Waiting so long for it too.
Yeah, the Nike Air being off center on the back of the black cement 4s. One of the most iconic, if not people's grail of all time, top 1-2 shoe of all time, and you fuck up and off center. Like, well, we caught it too late. I'm like, well, that fucking person needs to be fired. Fire that fucking person.
Yep, seriously.
So anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to doing it again soon, brother. It's good to see you. I will tell all you all to make sure you subscribe to the Politics Life podcast. It's on iTunes and Spotify and our YouTube channel, Politics Life. My man Harlem Germ, who's my co-host on Politics Life. And shout out to my guy Nick Engvall and the Sneaker Podcast. The Sneaker History Podcast is the best. I told him there's only Sneaker History and like maybe one or two others that I fuck with and that I enjoy. And the Sneaker History is just it's the best. Best out there going.
Well, I appreciate it, man. So last question before we hang up, what are you looking for most Chicago this year?
Smoking cigars with Michael fucking Jordan.
Right on. All right.
Smoking cigars and drinking Petrus with Michael fucking Jordan. Maybe a Chateau Margaux, maybe a fucking Richebourg, but because they've all said that you're bringing the serious cigars to Chicago. I'm like, you got no idea, brother. Fucking Michael Jordan gonna bankrupt me. Whatever you want. Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming by, man.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me.
It's been awesome seeing you and catching up. So, thank you everybody for listening, and make sure you follow or subscribe to the Politics of Life podcast, iTunes, and all the other platforms you listen to podcasts. My name is Nick Engvall, and we will catch you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, I wanted to ask a couple favors of you. If you're interested in more content from the Sneaker History crew, become a member of our Patreon page where we post daily content, drop exclusive episodes, and host monthly giveaways. We'll even help you hunt for your grails. Check us out at patreon.com/sneakerhistory. Also, make sure you sign up for our email newsletter at sneakerhistory.com/email.
We send out weekly updates on the footwear business and what we're working on here at Sneaker History. Last but not least, take a second to tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how much it means to someone, and it might even plant the seeds for something even bigger. As always, we appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, do us a solid and head over to Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. Give us a rating on Spotify and Amazon Music, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel because we have even more video content coming soon. Speaking of new content, we have an amazing community of sneaker enthusiasts that hang out in our Sneaker History Discord on a daily basis. While sneakers is a connection point that brought us all together, we've all discovered countless shared passions that we have in common with each other. We recently launched a couple of new podcasts directly from our community. One of them is a Formula One podcast. If you're an F1 fan like me, the Exhaust Notes podcast is your weekly fix of Formula One fun. It's hosted by myself, Rohit Malhotra, and Todd Yates. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I've been wearing fitted hats for years and collecting my favorite teams since I was a little leaguer. It has been awesome to see so many new fans getting into fitteds in recent years. Crown and Stitch is our new talk show about fitted hats with Dexter, Keith, and myself, where we talk about fitted hats, snapbacks, throw in some obscure hats because we all kind of like some funky stuff once in a while, don't we? Copping, collecting, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Hit the links in the show notes for this episode to give our new shows a listen, and be on the lookout for more new podcasts dropping soon. Last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Thank you all for the support, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.